So, saving the world from boring e-learning. I figure you're either here because that was interesting or there happens to be no other seminars on at this point in time. But please note, it is saving the world from boring e-learning. I have not mastered saving the world from boring presentations yet. So hopefully I'll keep you awake. Specifically, I'm going to talk about what the L&D department can learn from the marketing department. And it says that I'm the CEO. Do I look like a CEO? On Friday, it's my turn to empty the bins. It's not really that sort of company. I'll just put that there to impress you. So the real way of explaining who I am rather than titles is a little bit to do with, if you took a Venn diagram of my life, I've got two huge passions, and one of them is learning. I've worked in training companies. I've ran training companies. I now own a company that produces off-the-shelf e-learning content. My wife's a teacher. I help her run groups on how to educate kids through using play. I spend tens of thousands of pounds on my own personal development each year. Learning's a huge thing for me. But being an entrepreneur and a business owner, I also have quite a big interest in marketing and what marketing's doing. And I might not be the best marketer in the world, I might not be the best at L&D in the world, but I probably occupy a bit of a unique space where I've got an insight into what L&D are doing and what marketing are doing. And I think that there's some crossovers that we can learn a lot from. So I'm going to talk a lot about that today, and hopefully you'll follow that through with me. So the idea is really that marketing and L&D share a similar sort of challenge, that in marketing you've got to get someone's attention, you've got to deliver a message, and ultimately you aim to influence someone's behavior. And if you agree with me that that's pretty much a similar challenge to L&D, you'll notice that marketing just do the same thing. They're ultimately trying to educate a customer, but they go about it in a different way, and it's a very powerful force of influence. You know, the companies that can make people want to drink Coca-Cola for breakfast, and you know, what can we learn from that to try and make people be safer at work or better at customer service or better leaders? And I think that there's quite a lot that we can take. And it comes down to this really. In marketing over the last 30 years, there's been a big change. The internet simply has changed everything. And in the old days, if you just put your advert in the Yellow Pages, that was enough. If you bit more money, put it in a trade magazine, or really flash, you'd go on radio or TV, and that's what marketing was. But the internet has made it so much so that you can target people much better, and they don't talk about the 4 Ps now. They talk about the 3 Ms and the market, message, and the media. And the market really being, how can you really understand your customer to a really different level? So, thinking about, who is this guy? What does he do? What's his name? What's his age profile? Really talking about them as the language that they would use, and being able to tailor your message to suit them. And then also what media you would use. So I don't book a slot in the Times newspaper just because the guy calls me up, Adam, I've got an offer on a slot. Well, does that deliver my message appropriately to my customer? So you never start with the channel. You start with the market, then the message, then the media. And this is something that I think that people in L&D can learn a lot from, that knowing your learners on a level that a marketer would know their customer, and really understanding their profile and understanding exactly the language that they use, and then deciding what media or what channel that's best to get their attention. So a lot of people talking about mobile. Well, does that matter if all of your learners are sat at a desk in front of a machine every day? Is a mobile the best way to deliver a really important message? So I would never start with the device or the medium. I would always start with, who's my customer? Where is their attention? You're never going to get me to read the staff magazine because I don't go in the staff room for lunch. So, where is their attention already? And then how can you deliver that appropriate message to them in a way that they understand? Now, I know none of this is the groundbreaking stuff. I'm sort of leading up to a certain point that we can do. So if you're following me on this train of thought about marketing has a lot to offer. And again, the internet's changed everything in terms of marketing used to be a bit of a numbers game. If you were in the right place at the right time and people were ready to buy, great, you got lucky. But again, now it's a bit more, you want to be in front of them when they're ready to buy. So everything's gone towards life cycle marketing. So, you can say, well, I want to attract you in by saying, here's the 6 ways you can influence your L&D strategy, or 6 ideas, and you might download that. And then over a period of time, I might send you a white paper, I might send you a podcast, I might meet you at an exhibition, I might call you up, I might send you something in the post. So it's a multiple touch points to stay in front of you before I've influenced the behavior and got the desired outcomes that we want as a marketer. And I think that there's a lot, again, that L&D can learn from thinking in terms of life cycle and the number of touch points. So that can be a macro level, outlining the onboarding, the induction, and what's the lifetime and the journey, and mapping the different touch points. It could be on a micro level. So if you're wanting to roll out some training, it could be more of a campaign-led. So a good example that some of our customers are doing where they're using a skill of the month campaign. So in any given month, everybody in the organization is focused on a new skill. So it could be decision-making month, it could be customer service month. And what you're able to do then is do sort of a weekly announcement. So here's the course, it's live, here's a trailer video, here's the description, here's something to announce that the course is available. But you can follow that up on week 2 with, here's an infographic, here's a reminder of the benefits, the key reasons why you should do it. Week 3, set challenges for implementation, put some competitions in there. And then week 4, you can do sort of one-to-ones with managers. You could do a virtual classroom, drop-in sessions, do something a bit live to follow that up. But this idea of running training like a campaign gives you the ideas to the right message at the right point. And that's really powerful in marketing. And I can't see why it's not really powerful for L&D to adopt this approach. Another example, which you're more than familiar with, is if you've got a classroom event, do the e-learning so that everybody turns up on the day, that they've all at the same point. You get more out of the expensive part of the training, which is the classroom, the tutor's time. So rather than the classroom event being knowledge transfer, it's spent on the real facilitation and the social learning that can happen. And then follow up afterwards with workbooks and worksheets and takeaways. So a typical linear blended approach, but it's a campaign-led thinking. And again, another thing, so this is a bit more modern rather than the last 30 years of the internet, the last 10 years or so of social media. It's really changed how marketing has approached influencing behavior. And I think if you look at something like Snapchat, I think you get 8 seconds. If you look at Vine, I think it's 6 seconds. And I think that a Google YouTube advert, you get 5 seconds before I'm clicking skip ad, skip ad, skip ad. And we're just training ourselves that unless you've got my attention in the first few seconds, it's completely gone. So this is something I think in L&D we can think more about, how are we really getting people's attention and getting their buy-in early on. And again, the currency of what attention is on the internet is things like likes and followers and fans and reviews, all this thing that we're all training ourselves. These are what learners are doing in their private lives. What does that mean in terms of a workplace and L&D? And that is the currency of it. So when I'm on something like Facebook or I'm on Amazon, everything is tailored completely to what I expect. If I'm giving some engagement to this guy, they're going to feed me more of that. If I'm not engaged with something else, then they'll take that out. That we're just all expecting relevance in everything that we do now. So we're expecting relevance. We're expecting that, you've really got our attention. And again, what does all this mean to L&D? Well, I think that L&D, rather than it being sort of a bit, one size fits all, it is about how can you do something to be liked? How can the L&D department try and create fans and get people actually thinking about their attention and the relevance, and then getting people to follow it and be part of a tribe that follows what L&D are trying to do. Essentially, it comes down to what the whole point of this was, that don't be boring. If you want sort of a yardstick or an acid test or a measure of am I doing the right thing, essentially don't be boring is what's working, and I'll talk to you a bit more about how that is, we've proven that point. But I've been thinking a lot about why e-learning is perceived to be boring anyway, and I think, the historical reasons that it had to be the techie guys, the software was, in their hands, and they were the only ones who could use it, and more recently it's back in the hands of L&D people and people who are real, course designers. But historically, e-learning's been boring because that's where it was, and that's what people had been doing. And maybe platforms and LMS solutions were very sort of cumbersome and a little bit clunky, and again, we just perceive it to not be quite, relevant and quite as boring and exciting as we'd want. And I hear people talking about their culture, and this isn't the way we do things, or, it's very corporate here, or everything we do is technical, and I just think it's an excuse. I think that the real reason why people don't do things is because of fear. And I don't mean fear of failure or all these fears that we get told that these are important. I think it's hard to admit, but it is important to understand that it's fear of maybe being criticized. If you do something that's a bit different that you think is relevant to your audience, so rather than reference Princess Di, you reference Kim Kardashian because that's who you've thought my profile is, who I'm targeting with this piece of learning. Is it the fear of somebody saying, I'm surprised you did that? That's not really in keeping with the corporate brand. Well, it might not be, but it might be in keeping with the L&D message and what you're trying to say. So I think this fear of criticism is mostly what holds people back. And one of the things I wanted to sort of get across today is that we've started this mission of saving the world from boring e-learning only 12 months ago. And the people who have really taken it on, there's such a broad scope. We've got police forces, councils, universities, loads of people in finance sector, insurance, places where they are typically corporate, but they've bought into this idea of that e-learning doesn't have to be boring. And if you're somebody sat there thinking that's not the way it is here, well, I think that you can actually challenge that and maybe try something new and see how it goes down and see if it is as scary as you thought it would be to do something which was not as boring. And you might be thinking, well, what does not boring mean? And for us, we've not done anything crazy. It's not groundbreaking software or anything new. What we've done is just make stuff more, shorter, this idea of capturing people's attention early on. Shorter, sharper to the point, making things conversational. This is something that drives me mad, that, you can write something in a way that you would talk to them. So just write it as though it's a conversation. Script voiceover as though you're talking to a human being, not, it doesn't have to be a tannoy voice when it's e-learning. And the same with making it characterful. People are always asking us, is it Nick Knowles who does your e-learning voiceover, or is it, sounds like somebody off TV? It's like, it doesn't have to be an over-corporate professionalized voice for e-learning. I don't know where this has come from. And the obvious stuff that you've heard before, the idea of using stories or games or metaphors, all these things can be just a better way of just talking at somebody all the time. And we're quite clever with using humor. What the content that gets covered is very relevant. It's exactly on point with what the compliance might need to be, but it doesn't mean to say that you can't make it a little bit lighthearted and a bit more fun and engaging. And again, is it that bad to put something in there that's shocking? If it's true, if you do not do this, you might die or you might lose your job. And what would your quality of life be like if you lost an arm because you didn't use the machine correctly? I just think that you need to get people's attention and you need to speak to them in a way that they understand and they expect to be spoken to. And we're seeing this now, that our e-learning is being used with executives where previously they wouldn't take e-learning. Now they're looking forward to the next installment. We're seeing caretakers and operatives saying that they really appreciate our e-learning because it's short, to the point. It doesn't take them away from what they want to be doing. So we're engaging parts of an organization where e-learning previously wasn't, and it's not because of us. It's because we're just trying to do what we would want if we were the learner and make a course that, would we enjoy if that was what we were forced to take. And it's about not being boring, really. And if it is something that is boring and really difficult to make exciting, then focus on the why, not the company's version of why. This is why you have to do it because we want you to. Explain it in terms of, well, this could get you promoted, this could improve your flexibility. Talk in terms of the user and the learner. Just basically make it with the learner in mind. And, that's a simple principle we follow through, and it's serving us well. And then, I wanted to talk about what is the point of all of this. What is saving the world from boring e-learning? What can we learn from the marketing department? And the 3Ms idea, or thinking about things in terms of a life cycle and all the rest of it, it's kind of important. There's something we can take away from it, I think. Likewise, the idea of attention and what social media's done, being more relevant and how you do it. I think, again, there's maybe a few takeaways. But nothing that you wouldn't have thought of. It's maybe, hopefully, you're a bit braver to try it. And don't be boring. What does that mean? What is it? Yeah, of course, that's an important message and what we're trying to get across. But I think the thing that makes marketing or really exciting entrepreneurial companies successful isn't that they're not boring. It's that they're sort of doing something a bit different. And this probably is the main point of what I would want to get across today, is that it's not that bad of a thing to do something different and be a bit of a disruptor in your organization and make an L&D department stand for something exciting, so have its own brand. This is the way we do things in L&D, and it's a bit like being a leader, really. I speak to so many people who say, we don't have a learning culture, and I just think, well, yeah, because you're not creating it. You're not the leader who stood there doing something and standing for something and knowing who your audience is and giving them what they want. You're doing the way it's always been, and I think that you can do something that's a little bit more, shocking, or you can actually just create. So if you do something great, you can then think like a PR person would, and I will make sure the CEO has heard about this success we've had in our L&D department. Or you could model a good learner. If somebody's done something really well, let's make a real example of what this guy has done, what he's achieved, and let's really influence that by showing how good L&D looks. So it is thinking about your own L&D function as a marketing department, and you've got to stand up and be the leader and be the person who's changing things and disrupting it. And that's how you get a learning culture, through talking about making L&D part of what the company stands for. And it's something that we wanted to talk about today, that if you wanted to try some of the campaign ideas, the bags that you've got on the stands, and I know a lot of people around here might not have managed to get a bag, but the bags that we put on the chairs, they've got a memory stick in them with a series of content in. If you want to try the idea of doing a campaign with the infographics and the workbooks and the different things, and if you're not, then you can come and get scanned at Stand F2, and we'll give you some content and show you about what we're doing. But this isn't really about what we're doing. We're just a small part of it. It is more about everybody can do this. It is just thinking a bit differently about how you produce content, who you're producing it for, and really just doing something that's a little bit more exciting. It's not the future of e-learning, it's now. We're proving it, we're doing it, and you can just, maybe try this yourself. So if anybody does want to come and see us and get some content, or if you want to, prizes for guessing who my colleague is, if you manage to find a colleague, she's got a scanner and she can scan you so that you can get a trial of what we do. But other than that, I think I'm quite ahead of time. If anybody wants any questions or wants to ask me about anything else that they've heard, I can take any questions, or otherwise, you're free to go and carry on with about your daily life, not talking to Mr. Incredible. So, any questions? Embarrassing, awkward, silence? Right, well, otherwise, I'll be over here. If you want scanning, come and see us. Thank you very much.